get Detective O'Driscoll sworn in.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in the matter before the court to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, subject to the pains and penalties of perjury?
Detective O'Driscoll, I want to turn your attention to and discuss your interaction with the defendant on April the 14th, 2023. Do you recall that day?
Yes.
At that point in time, what was your relationship with this case?
I had just been assigned as the lead investigator on the case. I was not familiar with all the details of the case. I was trying to get a fresh perspective and pretty much starting from scratch.
And as part of your start from scratch, did you want to introduce yourself to the defendant?
Yes, I wanted her to know that there had been a change, not only in the assignment of the lead investigator on her case, but there had been some supervisory changes to the investigations division as well.
And when you say her case, you mean the case at that point in time investigating the death of Eric Richins?
Correct.
What was the change to not only you as the lead investigator, but you said, I think, the supervision of the division?
There was a new sergeant over the detectives, the investigation division, Sergeant Hoffmeyer.
So I take it you determined to then personally call on the defendant on April the 14th, 2023?
Correct.
And why personally instead of over the telephone?
It had been a year since Eric's death. I felt it was more professional considering the loss that she had gone through in the family, and felt that it was more appropriate to show up in person to speak with her and to introduce myself than over the phone.
Okay. There came a time then when you appeared on the doorstep of the Willow Court home where she was then residing. Is that correct?
Correct.
And thus began your interaction with her on that day, right?
Yes.
Did you record that interaction with her?
Yes, I did.
How did you record it?
I had a audio recorder running, and then later I activated a body cam that I had with me.
Okay. Let's talk about the body camera. When did you activate it?
After we were invited into the home and asked to sit down.
And did you activate it roughly contemporaneously with the point on the body cam, or the point on the recording where you say, "Do you mind if I record this interview?" or something to that effect?
Correct.
Can you please describe the body camera, not only how the body camera itself looks, but where it was sitting in relation rather to the defendant?
Yes, I wasn't dressed in a law enforcement uniform, and so I didn't have a mount that's typically available to officers to mount their camera to their body. I just had it loose. It's a small, square black body cam that's similar to those worn by patrol officers at that time, and when I activated it, I sat it on the armrest of the couch between myself and Miss Richins.
Was it in Miss Richins' plain view the entire time it was active?
Yes.
Does the body camera itself make any noise or light?
Yes.
What noise or light does it make?
It beeps and vibrates every few minutes, and there's a red flashing light that also indicates that it's recording.
And would Miss Richins, the defendant, have been able to see from the location of the body camera vis-a-vis her the blinking red light and hear the vibration and beeping?
Yes.
You mentioned it was similar to body cameras that officers on patrol wore at the time. Was it similar to the body cameras that the officers on patrol were wearing while they interacted with the defendant in the early morning hours of March the 4th, 2022?
Yes, at least some of them were wearing the same body camera.
Have you reviewed both the audio recording and the body camera recording that you made that day?
Yes.
Are those recordings true and accurate?
Yes.
Your Honor, the body camera recording that we're discussing is Exhibit 10, and a transcript is Exhibit 11.
Got it?
Did there come a time when you were on the front stoop of the defendant's home, that she invited you in?
Yes.
And is that accurately reflected in the recording?
Yes.
Did you then, upon her invitation, enter the home?
Yes.
Can you describe how you entered the home, how the home was laid out, and where you and Sergeant Hoffmeyer was with you?
Yes, correct, he was.
Where you, Sergeant Hoffmeyer, the defendant, and ultimately the defendant's mother, Lisa Darden, were sitting?
Yes. So the front door of the home opens into a short foyer. Directly in front of the door, through the foyer, is the main living area of the home. There were couches and love seats in the family room. Miss Richins sat on one end of the couch. I sat on the other end, and Sergeant Hoffmeyer sat in a separate piece of furniture near us. When Miss Darden entered, that Lisa, the defendant's mother, she seated herself on a entertainment center across from the couch on one wall of the living room.
What was your observation of the defendant's mood throughout the conversation?
She seemed very cheery, very open, happy to be talking with us, happy to have the opportunity to talk to investigators. She was outgoing.
At any time throughout your interaction with her on that day, did you observe her cry or become, did you observe tears fall from her eyes?
I didn't see tears, no.
I want to turn your attention to, in the binder before you, tab 12.
Okay.
Are you familiar with the emails at tab 12?
Yes.
What are they?
They are emails that Miss Richins sent myself and Sergeant Hoffmeyer a few days after we spoke to her in her home.
Do those emails follow up on the conversation and interaction you had with her on April the 14th at the home where she resided?
Yes, she was providing us additional information, follow-ups to the things that we had spoken about in her home. I'm sorry. Yes, that's correct.
And are they true and accurate depictions of those emails? You don't see them altered at all?
No, not as far as I can tell.
I asked you two questions, which was sloppy form. Are they true and accurate depictions?
Yes,
Were they altered at all?
does not appear so.
Thank you. No further questions.
May it please the court. Good afternoon,
Good
Detective. We've met before, but Kathy Nestor again on
Yes.
behalf of Ms. Richins. All right, so I want to talk to you about your deciding to go visit Ms. Richins. And you said that you had just been appointed, or not appointed, but assigned to the case, right?
Correct.
How long before?
I'm not sure. Less than a month, I think.
And when you were assigned to the case, there was a case file, wasn't there?
Yes, there were different locations that information about the case were stored or recorded.
All right. And you've been a law enforcement officer for some time. I'm certain you didn't go to her house unprepared to interview the primary suspect of a murder, right?
No, not entirely unprepared, but again, the intent to go to the house was not solely to get an interview. It was mainly to introduce ourselves and the change that had happened with the Eric Richins death investigation.
How long would that have taken?
I'm sorry, how long would what have taken?
An introduction.
Not long.
Okay, how long were you there?
3 hours.
Right. Okay, so before you went to her house, isn't it true that the day before you went to her house, you had applied for an affidavit for a search warrant of her phone and a computer?
I'm not 100% positive on dates.
Your Honor, can I approach?
Yep.
This is, I assume the
Here it is.
application.
I'm sorry. The affidavit was on the... May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes, thank you.
Handing you a warrant. And Your Honor, if we could just mark this really quick as 150.
Well, Your Honor, that's Exhibit 9 in the state.
Oh, Exhibit 9, great.
He's got a binder with Exhibit 9.
Great.
Yeah, I can use this if it's in here.
Okay, if you could turn to that exhibit number 9 in the binder and just look at that for just a moment. And is the affidavit along with the search warrant there in tab 9 or just the warrant?
It has the affidavit.
Okay, can you go to the last date, the last page of the affidavit and tell me the date that you executed it?
It says executed on 13th day of April 2023.
The day before you interviewed Ms. Richins, correct?
Correct.
And in this affidavit, you have multiple pages of why you want to search her phone, right? It looks like basically two pages of facts to support your affidavit,
Yes.
single-spaced. And in this affidavit, you refer to things that happened on the night of Mr. Richins' death and things that Kouri had told detectives before you. Is that right?
Yes.
And things the toxicology report had recorded, right?
Yes.
And you refer to an interview that was done of a friend of Ms. Richins that you refer to here as CB, as in boy, where she had been interviewed and that you suspected she had deleted messages, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And did you interview CB, or are you referring to what someone else did?
I believe in this affidavit I was referring to an interview that was conducted, that I did not conduct. That was conducted by other officers.
And specifically Detective Woody, correct?
I believe from my recollection it was Detective Woody and Sergeant Davis.
And she was in charge of the case before you?
Yes.
And you obviously had access to her notes or someone's notes from that meeting with Detective Woody and CB, right?
I don't know if I had access to notes from that interview with CB at that time. From my recollection, what I knew about that interview came from oral statements from Sergeant Davis and Detective Woody.
So you talked to Detective Woody about this case.
Somewhat.
How often did you talk to her?
Not very often.
When did you talk to her first?
I don't recall.
Before you interviewed Kouri Richins?
Yes.
All right. So before you interviewed Kouri, you had enough information about the case to prepare a 2-page affidavit with specific facts that had happened in meetings with Detective Woody, right?
Enough for this affidavit, apparently, yes.
And did Detective Woody provide you with her file from the case?
Again, there's not one file, but yes, I had access to the information about the case.
She had put together.
Yeah, I mean, even from the beginning of Detective Woody's investigation, from what I understand, it was a collaborative effort of multiple investigators.
Okay, but you had what she put together,
Yes.
and you talked to her about it.
Not about all of it, but some of it, yes.
Okay. And you certainly looked at it before you did this sworn affidavit to a judge, right?
Again, not all of it, but some of it, yes.
Because you don't have personal information. You weren't at this meeting with Woody and CB.
No.
Okay. So would you agree with me, sir, that in this affidavit it is extremely clear that Kouri is a primary suspect of this investigation?
I would have to take time to read the whole thing to answer that. I can
Please
if you
do.
want me to. Okay, I've read the whole thing. Could you repeat the question for me?
Yes. Would you agree with me that when you prepared this affidavit, that it was clear that Kouri Richins was a primary suspect of your investigation?
No, I wouldn't agree with that statement.
You would not?
No.
You didn't think she was a suspect at this point?
I didn't have definitive information that she was a suspect.
Okay. But you wanted to look in her phone, and you were asking a judge to let you look into a phone, right? Her phone.
Correct.
And you're asking to look into her phone, by your own words, to see if she tried to obtain fentanyl on her phone.
Yes, that's the part that's recalling my memory is at that time, with the limited information I had, the most important fact that I felt we knew was that Eric died of fentanyl overdose. So the biggest question to me was how the fentanyl got into his system. And in my opinion, there were basically 3 different ways that Eric could have died of a fentanyl overdose. It could have been an accidental overdose, it could have been a suicide, or it could have been a homicide. In order to be thorough, I was trying to investigate all 3 of those possibilities.
So 1 year after he died, you still had no idea whether it was a suicide, homicide, or an accident?
That's correct.
Okay. So you show up to have this friendly introduction with Ms. Richins. Do you tell her that you had just applied for this affidavit?
No.
And when you say you started from scratch, I mean, you didn't start from scratch. You'd spent a month reviewing the information prior to talking to Kouri, right?
No. I had not spent a full month reviewing that information. I still had a full caseload besides this case. When my time permitted, I reviewed what I could.
Okay, so you reviewed the files, right? Enough to do this affidavit.
Enough to submit this affidavit, yes.
You had talked to the previous case investigator, right?
Yes, but not a full debrief of the case.
Okay, but you'd talked to her, right? You'd reviewed the ME report, because you just said that.
Yes, I have.
Right? Had you looked at the material that was taken off of her phone previously?
No.
All right, so you show up, you don't tell Kouri that you just applied for a warrant to search her private information. Actually, what you tell her is that you all coach soccer together or something? Is that what you said when you came on to the house?
Your Honor, let me kind of renew this objection. What he told her is documented in audio and video recording. There's no dispute. It's not a game of gotcha. It is what it is.
Are you just trying to jog his recollection, lay foundation, or can we just move on?
All 3.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just get him to answer that one question? You talked about the fact that you all had ties in the community through soccer coaching and things like that, right?
Correct.
And then maybe she knew your wife or something?
That sounds familiar.
Okay. But you didn't tell her you were investigating her for homicide at any point in those 3 hours?
No.
You also didn't tell her you had a hidden recorder on your person, did you?
It wasn't.
Can you be specific at which
Yes.
point in time you're talking about?
When you first arrived at her house? Thank you, Your Honor.
No, the intention was not necessarily to hide it. The audio-only recorder was brought as redundancy in case of failure of equipment technology.
Where was it?
In my pocket.
Okay. Did you tell her
It
there
wasn't
was-
visible to her.
Right. Did
But
you
my
tell-
intent was not to hide that I was recording her.
Okay. Did you know whether Sergeant, it's Hoffmeyer, right, that was with you?
Correct.
Did you know whether Sergeant Hoffmeyer had a hidden recorder on him?
So our memories have been a bit confused on this point. Originally, I thought I had remembered that he had the recorder. The recorder was his piece of equipment and tools, but I think after listening to the recording from how far away he sounds from the microphone, I think I had the recorder on me, but it was just the one audio recorder and the one body cam.
And you intended to go in there and ask Kouri questions directly about what happened with her husband's death, didn't you?
After she invited us in and consented to having us interview her, yes.
When she invited you in, did you Mirandize her?
No.
Right. Did you know she had a lawyer?
No, I did not.
You did not? All right, let's look at the transcript for just a moment. I believe it is number Exhibit 11 in front of you. And can you go to page 7? And can you, this is, I mean, literally, you guys have maybe exchanged pleasantries, and you've only been there like a couple of minutes at this point, if it's page 7, right?
Yeah, it looks like about the time we were sitting down.
So can you read what Kouri said to you on line 3 of page 7?
So my attorney has been pushing to, obviously we just wanted her off the case because we're not getting anything done, anything accomplished.
And who's she talking about wanting off the case?
I think she was referring to Detective Woody.
So minutes into your meeting with her, she advised you she had an attorney.
Yes.
And you knew that you were going to elicit information from her that could be used against her, did you not?
I didn't know what information she would provide. I just wanted to know the facts surrounding the night of his death.
If she had said, hey, I killed my husband, would you have used that against her?
Likely.
Okay. So you didn't Mirandize her at that point. You knew she had a lawyer. You knew you were looking for information about her involvement in her husband's death, and you did not Mirandize her, correct?
Correct.
Did you tell her that she didn't have to meet with you, that you were only there if she wanted you to be there?
I don't remember the exact words that were exchanged before we entered the house, but I didn't say that specifically, no.
And you didn't record those, did you?
Yeah, they're recorded on the audio, just not on the body camera.
Okay. Were you wearing a gun?
I think so.
Was Sergeant Hoffmeyer in a uniform?
I think so. I don't remember specifically.
Did he have a gun?
Probably.
All right. Prior to your meeting with Ms. Richins, when you were applying for the warrant of the phone that had been seized from her in April of 22, did you review the reports about the seizure and the investigation on the 12th?
No.
When you were reviewing Agent Woody's file, do you recall seeing correspondence from her attorney, from Kouri Richins' attorney, instructing that no one investigating the case interview her client again without the lawyer being present?
Your Honor, objection that wildly mischaracterizes the correspondence. The correspondence is in evidence. It says what it says.
Would you rephrase the question?
Do you remember reviewing correspondence from Ms. Richins' attorney in
Why don't we just pause there?
Detective Woody's file?
There you go.
No.
Do you remember discussing it with Detective Woody?
No.
So prior to going to interview the key suspect of a murder investigation, you didn't take 1 minute to check and see if she was represented by counsel after a year?
No.
Okay. All right.
Your Honor, the state's going to object to this line of questioning. The state renews its objection based on the Sixth Amendment, in that the Sixth Amendment has not yet attached.
So you say, but we're going to have to get into some briefing about whether this proceeding had reached a quote-unquote critical stage under the case law and whether it had begun to focus on a particular suspect or other critical stage. Let's just get the facts in.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor, let me make the record.
Sure.
Then let me finish the record on the Sixth, quick move to the Fifth.
Sure.
I think the Sixth Amendment case law in Utah, it's the Padaki case, says it attaches at arraignment. And so I think it is a clear decision that there is no Sixth Amendment point. The Sixth Amendment has not attached at this point in the narrative. Moving to the Fifth Amendment. Your Honor, the Fifth Amendment, of course, attaches when there is a custodial interrogation.
Truth.
And Utah's Perea case, really citing to McNeil v. Wisconsin of the Supreme Court, says one cannot anticipatorily invoke a Fifth Amendment. You need custody before you can invoke the Fifth Amendment. And so all this business about whether the defendant was represented, whether Detective O'Driscoll knew she was represented or otherwise, is immaterial
to the 5th,
to the 5th.
not necessarily to the 6th. We'll see if your citation to Utah case law is correct. But I understand your point regarding the 5th. I think the Fifth Amendment issues, right, are why they keep asking her if he had a gun on and show of force, free to leave, Mirandized, all that stuff.
Correct. I believe that line of questioning goes to the Fifth Amendment argument.
Correct.
They will one day make.
Right.
But here's the state's concern is the state is certain that we can select a fair and impartial jury from Summit County potential jurors. But the state is very cognizant that the more information, and in this instance, the more false information put into the potential jury pool will make it more difficult and take longer to select those fair and impartial jurors.
Well, I have shared this concern generally in this case from the detention, the first detention hearing, given the level of media attention. But the reason I don't think that cuts one way or the other with respect to Summit County versus Salt Lake County versus, candidly, Washington County is because the outlets that are covering this, 95% of them are national or international outlets or new media outlets on YouTube that do not respect any county boundaries. And so I think the concern you're expressing, while valid, applies to every potential jury pool.
Well, yes, Your Honor, I agree with that. I think we will argue that one day in the future. The reason I mention it is the gratuitous publication of false information through the course of these moving papers and this examination is unhelpful to creating, quickly filing a fair and impartial jury, whether it's Summit or Salt Lake or wherever.
I appreciate your concern. I don't think we are even approaching, never mind beyond, the point of no return in that regard. And I'll stay aware and vigilant.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just pointing out, Your Honor, all of these materials have come from the state, and this is the
Ms.
first.
Nestor, we can just move on.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. All right, so I want to move now to the search that you did and the arrest. By the way, Kouri was arrested. You sought an arrest warrant for her within a couple of weeks of having this start from scratch interview of her, right?
Yeah, that time frame sounds correct.
So in the space of your interview with her on the 18th, whatever the date is, the 14th, and her arrest on May 8th, which is about 2.5 weeks, in between that time, you decided it was a homicide and she was the one who did it. And that's
Yes.
3 weeks. Okay. All right. So then you applied for a warrant of her house, which you applied for on May 3rd. And let me approach with this, Your Honor. Great. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yeah.
We're going to mark this as Exhibit 56.
I'll show you that first. I just need it back when you're done. Okay. Please proceed.
By the way, in that period of time between when you had this interview with her and were open to hearing however it happened, the death, and the time you issued the warrant for her and the search for her house and her arrest on May 3rd, did you investigate any other potential suspects in that 2.5-week period of time?
To an extent, yes.
And I assume you have reports about that?
Yes.
That you prepared? Okay. I'm not going to go into that, Your Honor. Okay, so what is the date that you applied for the search warrant to go search her home? When did you ask a judge to give you permission to search her house again, a year later?
May 3rd, 2023.
Okay, so again, like less than 3 weeks after you interviewed her, right? And in this
believe that math
interview,
works.
I mean, this
One
warrant.
second, would you repeat that for us?
I just said I believe that math works out. Yes.
Okay. In this warrant that you got, you asked to search for 2 things in the house, right? 2 things.
Correct.
Counterfeit pills and copper cups. That's it.
Yes.
Okay. And that warrant was issued by a judge, correct?
Yes.
And that's the warrant that gave you authority to exercise a search of her house on the day she was arrested, correct?
Yes.
All right. On the day she was arrested, Ms. Richins was located in another location from her home. She was down in Salt Lake, is that right?
Yes.
And you were there at the location where the arrest took place, right?
Correct.
And other officers or deputies were involved in the search of the house up in Camas.
Correct.
And while you were, let me see really quick. While you were arresting Ms. Richins, when you arrested her down in Salt Lake, did she have a phone on her at that time?
Yes.
On her person?
It was in her hands, yes.
And when she stepped out of the car, what did you tell her to do with that phone?
She didn't step out of a car.
You pulled her out?
No. She was exiting a business building,
Okay.
and I
I'm
approached her while she was walking out.
sorry, my bad. So when you approached her, what did you tell her to do with the phone?
I didn't tell her to do anything with the phone.
What did she do with the phone?
Your Honor, objection. This seizure is not the subject of any of the 3 motions that today's hearing set for.
I think that's right. Isn't that right?
No, it's relevant to Mr. Ramos's motion.
Electronic data?
Yes, because I'm just identifying the foundation of where that phone came from.
Your Honor, that motion, the electronic data motion, challenges the 4 corners of the warrant itself. The actual seizure of the phone is irrelevant, other than the fact that it was seized pursuant to that warrant.
Yeah, forgive me. I listened back to our discussion regarding burdens. Is there anything about the execution of that warrant that defendants believe was unreasonable?
About the execution of the warrant of arrest?
The search warrant, or is it that you believe the phone was seized without the benefit of a
I'm
warrant?
about to get into the statements she made at the time of her arrest prior to Miranda that directly deal with the phone that was in her hands. So I'm just laying a foundation for which phone it is and what they say to her and what they get her to say.
Your Honor, none of that information is relevant to the 3 pending motions.
Yeah, forgive me. This is new to me. I don't know that have you filed a Rule 12b3 motion that regards this topic?
Yeah.
Help me out. We just need to make sure the state had noticed that this was coming.
I'm grabbing it just a minute.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Nestor. I believe it's undisputed that Kouri was arrested. A phone was seized from her during the course of the arrest.
Right.
2 hours later, a warrant was issued with respect to the contents of that phone, correct?
Right. We are not actually challenging the search of the phone. I am dealing with the issue of the statements that she made after her arrest, but
That topic is not, and forgive me if I missed it, that topic is not a part of Mr. Ramos'
hold on just
motion.
one moment, Your Honor.
Yep,
Can I talk about?
no problem.
Okay. Okay. I'm sorry, Your Honor, I got confused. I don't need to go into that. So I will move on. That is a different issue.
Okay, very good.
Okay, so you're down there, you're with her when she's being arrested. Meantime, there's officers searching her home up in Camas, right?
Correct.
And at some point, you get a phone call from one of the officers on the scene, is that right?
I don't recall. I'm sure I took lots of phone calls that day.
Did they advise you that they had found something in the search that was not within the permission of the warrant?
I don't recall.
Recall being told?
Go ahead, Mr. Bloodworth.
Your Honor, I think this goes to the seizure of the orange notebook, which is issue 4 in the defense motion to suppress statements and evidence.
Right.
As we discussed last Thursday, the state has conceded that the state seized that notebook on May the 8th, 2023, beyond the scope of the warrant that Ms. Nestor is addressing.
Correct. The state, I understand, will be arguing inevitable discovery.
Yes, Your Honor, and that argument relies exclusively on paper, various warrants, their tabs, I think it's...
We'll get there. We don't need to name them all now.
13 through 17-ish.
Okay.
The point being is, this examination is nothing more than to prove a fact that the state has conceded.
I think that concession matches my notes after re-listening to the last status conference with counsel. Anything else we need from this witness regarding the orange notebook?
Yes.
Proffer for me what else it is you need.
Your Honor, all the steps that are made and the chronology of the steps that are made about the search file into my entire fruit of the poisonous tree argument. I need to lay a foundation if I ever need on appeal. I need to be able to make clear the steps that they went through to...
With respect to the orange notebook?
Yes,
Once they have it, though, outside the scope,
yes.
it's a problem that they now need to invoke some kind of exception to fix. Isn't it the steps after the orange notebook that would be relevant to the fruit of the poisonous tree?
That's what I'm getting to right now. Is I just asked him about the orange notebook
Okay.
and what he does next. I mean, that's where I'm going.
My apologies. Okay.
No worries. Okay, so, may I proceed? I'm sorry. So you get this call that they find a notebook in her house, right?
I don't.
Go ahead.
Your Honor, I don't know that we're fully clear on this issue.
Let me sound out what I understand is the possible benefit of this. Are you preserving the ability to argument that there was a gap in time between when the notebook was actually found and when it would have inevitably found?
Yes.
And during that gap in time, they learned some things that is
Yes.
fruit of the poisonous tree.
Yes.
Here's the gap I'm not sure we're square on, Your Honor. State has conceded that the search on May 8th that discovered the content of the orange notebook
Right.
was beyond the scope of the initial May 8th warrant to search the home. Based on information obtained from the orange notebook,
At that time.
at that time on May 8th, there was a second warrant written to search the home on May 8th for a notebook. The state is conceding that that second warrant, the portion of that second warrant to search for notebooks, there were other collateral issues that don't touch on this. was invalid because it relied on information discovered in the notebook pursuant to a search beyond the original warrant.
Okay.
The state's inevitable discovery argument is about warrants that occurred way after May 8th. All the information those warrants relied on are in the affidavits of probable cause for those warrants.
May we pause here for just a moment? I think this discussion would be more detailed and fruitful if you both weren't worried about seeding the public record with a bunch of stuff you don't want potential jurors to know about. That is a sufficient basis to close these proceedings briefly to have a more detailed discussion about this topic. So, everybody who is on that side of the bar, including all of you, I need you to step out now. The WebEx link is unmuted. Mr. Bloodworth, sir, you're under oath, correct?
Yes.
Very good. Mr. Bloodworth, please proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, for the record, the state is called and the clerk has sworn Clint Benson. Mr. Benson, are you familiar with the trust relating to the estates of Eric Richins?
Yes.
And who is the trustee of that trust?
Katie Richins Benson, well, it'd be the Eric Richins Trust. And then Katie Richins Benson would be over that trust.
And what, if any, relationship do you have with Katie Richins Benson?
I'm her husband.
Are you familiar with the Willow Court address where Eric Richins lived?
Yes.
Does the trust own the Willow Court address?
Yes.
Does the trust have control, like physical control over the Willow Court address?
Yes.
Did the trust gain control, physical control over the Willow Court address upon the defendant's arrest on May the 8th, 2023?
Yes.
Who, on behalf of the trust, has controlled access to the Willow Court property?
That would be me. So after Kouri's arrest, locks were changed, cameras were installed, and I have monitored all access to that property.
Okay, in monitoring all access to the property, other than law enforcement, who, if anyone, has entered the property?
We have had Todd Gabler has entered the property.
And let me just break you there. Is Todd Gabler an investigator retained by the state in connection with the civil litigation?
Correct.
Other than law enforcement and Todd Gabler, has anyone entered the home?
We did have one instance where it was a bank matter where someone did try to enter the home. Law enforcement was quickly called, and he was stopped at the garage man door and garage entrance.
Okay. To wrap a little specifics around that, a bank holding a lien on the property had asked a locksmith to go to the house and change the locks. Is that right?
Correct.
When that person was at the house to change the locks, that generated a call to the police?
Correct.
Deputy Shane Norton responded to that call,
Yes.
and he contacted that locksmith in the garage before that locksmith entered the house. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Other than police, Mr. Gabler, and the locksmith, has anybody else entered that house?
I did have assistance from a family member on installing cameras in that home, but that was right after Kouri's arrest, and that would be it.
Have you personally escorted those who've entered the home?
Yes.
In each instance, I guess, except for that locksmith who was trying to change the locks?
Correct, yes.
Okay. In escorting anybody that entered the home, did you observe anybody bring something from inside the home and place it, or sorry, something from outside the home and place it inside the home?
Never, no, that's never occurred.
Other than police removing items from the home pursuant to warrants, have you seen anybody remove any items from the home?
No.
Thank you. No further questions.
Good afternoon. Mr. Benson, you and I have met before, but just to remind you, my name's Kathy Nestor. Okay. So your wife is the trustee of a trust that the house has been folded into, is that correct?
Correct.
And there's litigation surrounding that trust at this time, is that right?
That's
Civil litigation.
correct, yep.
And since the day that Kouri was arrested, the family was not aware she was going to be arrested, right?
No,
Okay. And she has 3 young sons,
correct.
and they were at school.
I believe so. I was not there when that occurred, so.
Your Honor, objection relevance as to what this has to do with the state's direct examination regarding security of the home.
Because I think she's laying foundation that there was a time when some stuff was taken out of the home regarding the kids. But I think we could just fast forward to,
I'll get to it.
thank you.
After Kouri was arrested, someone who was not a member of your immediate family was the guardian for a brief time of those children, is that right?
Correct.
And those children had to come back and get their things out of the house?
I believe so, yep.
Yeah. And they were with that other person that was not you?
They came to the home, but I believe I was there when they arrived to do that, and they were escorted.
And in fact, hasn't there been, in another matter, hasn't there been an order entered that the children are permitted to go into the home to get items whenever they need it?
They are permitted, but they have not gone to the home,
But at least once they did.
not to my knowledge.
You just said they went in there with their guardian.
No, you asked if someone had gone to the home, but it was the guardians that had gone to the home to pick up their stuff.
Oh, okay. So the children weren't with them.
Correct.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't understand. That's what you were saying. I apologize. So the guardians were there at least once.
They were there once, to my knowledge.
Okay. And Mr. Gabler has been in the home, correct? And Mr. Gabler's been assisting this prosecution with providing them with reports and interviews and all kinds of things to assist this prosecution. Is that right?
Your Honor, objection. Anything Mr. Gabler's provided has been pursuant to a subpoena.
We can keep moving here, Ms. Nestor.
Mr. Gabler's working with this prosecution team, as far as you know. He's provided them with materials for however he provided it to them.
Correct.
All right. And he had authority to be in that home because he was working for your family. Is that right?
I wouldn't say he had authority to be in that home. He was accompanied by me when he was in that home.
How many times did he go in that home?
I don't recall the exact number.
More than 5?
I don't recall.
More than 20?
Not more than 20.
Okay, so less than 20 times, but more than once or twice.
Correct.
And when Mr. Gabler would go in there, he did search for items that he thought would be relevant and helpful to the prosecution, didn't he?
I believe so.
Your Honor, renewing the objection.
I think Ms. Nestor is about to move on to a
I
new
am?
topic.
Okay. And the times that the warrants were executed, we just took some testimony about 4 different warrants that have been executed since Kouri's arrest on the house. 4 times. Were you there for each time they did the warrants?
Yes.
And you saw the searches every time?
I would let them into the home to perform the search.
Okay. And how many people would be in the house, give or take, when that was going on?
You're talking 4 searches, so you'd have to be more detailed.
How many officers would you see? Typically, was it one? Was it multiple officers that would come in?
It would be more than one.
So you couldn't be with all of them the whole time, right?
Correct.
How big is the house?
It's 4,300 square feet.
Okay, and there's multiple floors, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And how long did those searches take, average, when they would go in and search under these last 4 warrants over the past 12 months?
It depended upon the case and what they were looking for. So it was dependent upon the warrant.
And as the trustee, the person that would be present, did they tell you what they were looking for?
No, in some instances they would, some they wouldn't. So
Tell me the instances you remember in the last 12 months what they were looking.
I don't recall exact items. There were a lot of items.
Okay, so they did take items out of the house every time?
I don't recall if it was every time, but they did give a list of items that were taken on the, in regard to the warrant.
All right. And the first time the house was searched, did it appear like was the house in disarray after the search? In other words, were things thrown on the floor? Was there?
Would you pause for 1 second,
Yep.
Ms. Nestor?
Your Honor, this is beyond the scope and irrelevant.
I think this is beyond the scope of the motions you filed.
I'm
I
just-
don't recall any arguments regarding unreasonable execution of a warrant.
No, that's not why I'm asking.
I think we need to move on.
Has Katie been in the house?
No.
Never? Not since the death of her, not since the funeral?
You got to, hold on.
Sorry, let me
Would
let me
you
rephrase.
redefine the time period
Not
that you're
since,
describing?
not since the time of Kouri's arrest, Katie has not been in the house?
She has not.
And Amy has not been in the house?
Not that I recall.
And your father has not been in the house?
He hasn't been in the house, no. He's there. You'd have to be more specific. Do you mean the house or the detached garage? What item
Anywhere
are you
on the
talking about?
property?
He has been on the property.
Okay. All right. Were you present on the day of Kouri's arrest when they were searching the home?
I was not.
Were you the person that came and changed the locks that day, or did someone else do that?
I didn't change locks. We hired a person to come and change the locks.
So you personally didn't appear at the house that day?
I was at the house.
Were you there while the search was ongoing?
No, I don't believe so.
So do you know how many people went inside and outside the house that day?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained. We need to move on.
Do you know you were not at the house the day that the arrest happened?
Your Honor, he
Judge?
just testified that he was.
Yeah, you're going to have to be more specific, and
Well,
we're going to have to move on. You
I
need
will.
to stay
I will.
reasonably tethered to the motions that the defense has filed.
The day that Kouri was arrested, there was a lot of people on the property. Is that correct?
Law enforcement.
And were there others?
I don't remember seeing anybody but law enforcement there, as well as a locksmith to change the locks.
Were you there the entire day?
I was not there the entire day.
Okay. What portion of the day were you there? An hour, half an hour, 6 hours?
Just as long as it took the locksmith to change the locks.
So at the very end, when they were finished?
Correct, I believe so, but I
Okay.
don't recall.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you, Your Honor.
Anything else for this gentleman?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
May we release this witness?
Yes, sir.
You're welcome to step down. Thank you. Do you mind pouring your water and that's plant there? Thank you.
Happy to.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bloodworth.
Your Honor, the state has no further witnesses on this first motion to suppress statement and evidence.
And so I believe this is the point where the state would say all burdens either are with or have shifted to the defense. Is that correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Nestor, Ms. Lewis, Mr. Ramos, give me a sense of where we're headed.
Can I approach for just 1 minute?
Sure.
Mr. Blevins?
All right, Ms. Nestor.
Your Honor, we believe there's sufficient evidence on the record for us to brief at this time. We're not going to call any more witnesses on my motion. The only two left are Mr. Ramos and then Ms. Lewis's.
Ms. Lewis, tell me, your motion is
A 6-page document,
to suppress the letter?
yes.
And who do we need to call, if anyone, on
We have
that?
the 2 officers who did the search of the jail cell.
Okay, are they present?
Are they present, Mr. Bloodwood?
Your Honor, they are both working in the back. I need about 2 minutes on each, but I need a break anyway.
That's no problem. Let's take we'll take a 5-minute break, and then we'll see how far we get with that, okay?
Got it.
Thanks, folks. Thank you. Court will be in recess for 5 minutes. Thank you.
Involved at that time in a search that took place of the pod and the cell of Ms. Kouri Richins.
Yes.
All right. So could you tell me what initially led to the search at that time?
Do you have a specific search?
Yes, let's start with, I believe there was a search of Ms. Richins' cell on September 13th of 2023.
Okay. So Ms. Richins had a medical episode, and so there was a brief search initially after medical had treated her. And that was a quick search to look for any obvious contraband left over from EMS personnel. And then shortly after that, there was indication that there was possibly something held up on a video chat.
Okay, I'm going to ask you about that, but let me
Okay.
just take it one step at a time. So initially, she was taken out of the jail for a medical
Correct.
situation.
Yep.
And there was a search on September 13th, and all you were looking for was if anything was left behind by the EMTs, is that correct?
Initially, yes.
Okay. And then when was it you became aware of a video call that led you to want to search the cell further?
So it was while she was away from the jail that was brought to my attention that there was possibly something held up in a video chat. So we searched the cell looking for a piece of paper with cursive handwriting on it.
And that search took place on September 14th, is that correct?
13th, I believe, is my dates.
So, all right, so the first search on September 13th, you
Correct.
didn't seize anything from her cell at that time, is that correct?
No.
And you believe the second search was September 13th?
So there was initial search of just immediately nothing to do with any case. It was just a contraband search of any medical items left over in that
Okay.
immediate area. And then while she was away, there was a indication that there was possible issues with a video conversation where she held up a piece of paper.
And on that occasion, did you search just her cell, or did you search the entire pod?
It was just her cell on that one.
All right, and that was also September 13th?
Yes.
And nothing was collected on that search either, correct?
Nope.
So what led to the search on September 14th of the pod and Ms. Richins' cell?
So there was random cell searches of two different sections, Gulf Pod and Bravo Pod. And then also with her medical condition, she was going to be moved to a different cell for observation.
All right. Alex, can you just put on, I'm going to show you some videos of the search
Okay.
on September 14th. We'll try not to go through every single one of them. Could you start pulling up? It's States Exhibit 69, but it's number 8 on our list. And before we start that, well, actually, no, go ahead. Let's put that on, Alex. Thank you.
Your Honor, can I just offer the court some context? The video system, because it's so data heavy.
Ask him about it, but
Oh, okay.
I'll ask him.
That's fine.
That's fine. Okay, yeah, just don't, pause it for now. Let me just. So before we start, can you tell me, is that you in the video there?
Yes.
And which of those cells belongs to Ms. Richins?
I believe at this time Ms. Richins was in 4, which is upstairs.
In fact, it's the top right cell, is that correct?
Correct, yep.
That one that is being pointed to on the
Yep.
screen? All right. And the video camera is, where's that video camera?
It's elevated. It's on the back wall.
Is that the only camera in that pod?
It is, yes.
And
Next to an observation cell that's in cell 5.
where's that at? Can you,
It is the bottom left corner.
that we can see? Or,
It's-
left corner over there?
Yeah, so that will be just directly in the cell. It won't view anything else.
All right. So who runs the video camera?
What do you mean?
Is there someone in charge?
It's
of the-
on. It's like an ongoing thing. Observation cells can be turned on and off.
Is the video camera run all the time or just?
The main section cell, yes.
All right. And that video camera, as we're going to see in these videos, it freezes a lot. Is that correct?
I believe it is a motion-based.
You believe it's emotion-based?
Yes.
So if it's not,
If there's no movement, I don't believe it records until it senses movement.
all right. We'll talk about that as we look where some of it is where nothing is moving. Who is it that collects the videos from that camera?
I believe it is our administrative sergeant,
Who is that?
Sergeant Thomas.
Okay. And is he the one that would have provided the videos that we have in evidence at this time?
He'd probably be one of them.
Okay. Alex, can you just play that video? Now, these videos, I think each is about 1:30, but it's an ongoing search, right? They happen one right after the other. And
And is this of the 13th?
I believe this is the 14th.
Okay.
I believe. If I'm wrong, please correct me. Let me ask you while we're looking at this. So the stuff that's on the tables downstairs, is that stuff that's been taken out of cells, or is that stuff that was just left by inmates?
Without knowing exactly what date of this search, I can't see the date, but that looks like it's indicative of somebody being in the day room, inmate-wise, and then being either locked down or moved abruptly.
Your Honor, if I may.
One moment. Okay.
You can't see it, but if you were to shrink the video, the date and time are in the top left corner.
Right?
This is the video of the 14th, and the time and date stamp are on the video.
Remind me the exhibit number for this one.
This is States Exhibit 69. All right. So go ahead, Alex. In the video there, you've just entered Ms. Richins' cell. Is that correct?
That appears to be me, yes.
And she doesn't share that cell with anyone, or she didn't, correct? She was there alone. So what is it you're doing here?
I would be looking, if this was on the 14th, this would be doing a search and then also moving her, gathering up her belongings and moving it down to cell 5.
Oh, that's, okay, because she was moving to cell 5.
Correct.
All right. Now, this was after you had already searched for handwritten notes the day before?
Yes, the cursive letter.
Okay. All right, Alex, it's okay. You can, let's go on to the next video, which is State's Exhibit 70. That's number 9. I'm just going in order. Can you zoom in a bit, Alex, on the cell so we can maybe see better what's... It's a little bit difficult, but, okay, there we go. So what is it that you are, all right, there, in your hand? It looks like you have an envelope?
Correct.
And is that an envelope that you had looked at the day prior?
I observed it, yes.
But you didn't look in it
Nope,
that day?
not looking at it, nope.
Now, is this the envelope that on the front has Ms. Richins' prior attorney's name?
I believe that would be the one.
Okay. And it says attorney privileged or something to that
I don't recall it
effect.
saying that. I just recall it saying Sky Lazaro, who I knew was her attorney at the time.
All right. And if a report indicated it said attorney privileged, do you have any reason to disagree with that?
I didn't see that, so
You don't recall?
I don't recall seeing that on there. But
Okay. So on this search, you opened that envelope, correct?
yes.
And go ahead, Alex, you can just play it out well. And what was it you found in that envelope?
In inspecting that envelope, there was numerous paperwork. There was obvious court heading, court minutes. There was some, what appeared to be like some cards that were made from children. I didn't observe any obvious other contraband.
There were handwritten notes in that envelope,
Yes.
correct? Quite a few, isn't it?
Yeah.
Accurate, there were a lot of handwritten notes. And you looked through those notes that day?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I know I'm bad at that. I'll try harder. All right, let's just go to Exhibit 71, Alex, number 10. Can you tell me who the other 2 individuals are who are coming towards the cell at this point?
That is Deputy Watts, and that is Sergeant Thomas in the bottom, and then the one in the white shirt is our nurse.
All right. Now, were you still going through the papers in the envelope at that time?
Yes.
Can you give us a rough idea of how many pages were in that envelope?
Hundreds. It was, yeah.
So what did you do with the papers that were in that envelope after this search?
After the search, they were put back in as best as I could, back into the manila folder.
And given back to Ms. Richins?
It was left in her property and then put back in her cell when I moved her to 5.
And is it your testimony that none of the papers in that envelope were seized?
To my knowledge.
All right. Let's skip to State Exhibit 74, number 13.
Say the date again.
State Exhibit 74.
What was the next thing you said?
Oh, I was just telling Alex what number it was in our
Got it.
list. All right, I think a lot of this is frozen. Let it run and it'll start to move. Now, is that Sergeant Thomas standing outside the door?
Yes.
What are you doing during this time? Do you recall?
I recall I'm still searching the folder.
All right. At some point during this search, there is a document found that is a 6-page document that is, I believe, at docket number 214, which says walk the dog on the top. Are you familiar with that document?
Yes.
Are you the one that found that document?
I am not.
Okay. Did you view the document that day?
I cannot specifically recall. I remember Sergeant Thomas, when he indicated he had found it, that was a brief, maybe a brief look at it,
All right.
but did not get a good description of it at that time.
You read that document at another time?
Not specifically like full on, but got more of a briefing from it.
So the documents were in the envelope that you were going through. Are you aware if some of those documents have since been found to be privileged documents?
Are you asking me, were they in that envelope that I
Well,
was
no, right,
searching?
I'm asking you if the documents that you were reading that were in the envelope contained privileged documents.
Yes, I wasn't reading them, though.
Well, you were going through, you said hundreds of documents.
Yeah.
So you would have had to have at least read some to get an idea of what they were, correct?
Inspecting, looking at, the heading on it, like, court paperwork to me is pretty obvious, like headings.
Well, there were a lot of handwritten documents in that envelope, correct?
Correct.
And you determined not to seize any of those documents, correct? Mm-hmm. And you, as you were reading those documents, you determined that some of them were privileged and you should stop reading them, correct?
I didn't read them,
Then how did you know what they were?
just glancing at them.
Okay. Let's go to State Exhibit 75, which is 14. And so right now you can see it appears this is frozen, correct?
It appears so. I see the timer moving in the corner, but no movement.
All right. So sometimes it detects, now it starts. So sometimes it detects movement in the cell and other times it doesn't? Is that correct?
To my knowledge, it responds on movement, so I don't know why it would be not moving or not recording.
Is that you on the left side of the bunk? I can't tell. Or are you on the
No, I'm on the right, on the foot of the bed.
foot of the bed? So what is it that you are searching at this time?
I believe I'm still looking at the items in the manila envelope.
All right. And we'll have Sergeant Thomas here in a minute so we can ask him what he's looking at.
Okay.
So I won't ask that with you. So it's still the same envelope that had her former attorney's name on it, Ms. Richins' former attorney's name on the front.
Correct.
Right, then let's go ahead and skip to State's Exhibit 76, which is 15. And if we could zoom in on the corner. Now, what I would like you to take a look at here, this video, it's frozen for some time, but then let's see what happens when it unfreezes. This is 15, right? I'm sorry, it's hard. We can't pinpoint the exact spot, but these videos aren't too long, so. It's still moving. All right, the envelope that's in your hand right there, that's the envelope we've been talking about. Is that right?
Correct.
And Sergeant Thomas is looking at some other papers, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Do you know what he's looking at
I
this
do
time?
not.
All right, then we'll just ask that to him. Let's skip to, and I believe 16, the entire thing is, I'm sorry, State Exhibit 77. Let's skip to 78. And while we're doing that, let me ask you, so when Sergeant Thomas found the 6-page document that says walk the dog on top, did he tell you about it right when he found it?
He made indication that he thought he had found something.
And did he make indication as to where he had found it?
I don't recall.
Okay.
I think he said it could have been in a book. I'd have to review my report.
Go ahead, that's. Now, I think when this eventually unfreezes, it's going to show you carrying a bin down the stairs. Do you get occasion to look at these videos very often?
Say again?
Do you get occasion to look at videos from that camera very frequently?
Yes, I have the capability to review video.
Is it always these large gaps where nobody's moving?
If there's nobody moving, it won't record.
Well, are there always gaps where, I mean, you are moving in the cell and it comes on and off? Is that how it always is, or is this unusual?
I haven't come across a situation like this.
So this is the first time you've seen big frozen gaps?
With the timer moving and no movement, yes.
So you're now walking downstairs with a bin?
Yes.
Now, did you put everything in that bin yourself, or was that stuff that was already in a bin in her cell?
I gathered her items up, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there was items in there, but all her items in her cell, I did gather.
So you put those all into the bin?
It may not have been all of them, but I put some in them. There may have been items in it already, but there was stuff added to it for sure, yes.
Are you aware of a book she had in her cell that was an LSAT study prep book?
Not at that time.
You weren't aware of it at that time?
Correct.
So you aren't aware if that is something you put in that bin?
No, I wasn't aware of what.
All right. What was your involvement after this in the rest of this search, after you searched the envelope?
To gather her items up and move it to the cell that you saw me move the box to.
All right. Did you personally seize anything from the cell during that search that was?
I did not know.
So you didn't take anything out of the cell? Everything was put back in the envelope or in the bin and moved to her new cell?
Correct.
Okay. I just have one moment. Your Honor, I don't have anything further for Sergeant Barrett.
Mr. Bloodworth?
I'm gonna leave my water.
Sergeant Barrett, you're familiar with what I mean when I say the walk the dog letter, right?
Yes.
Docket 214, but every law nerd on the internet calls it the walk the dog letter. When you searched manila envelope marked with Ms. Lazzaro's name, did you see, recover, seize the walk the dog letter?
I did not.
In the videos that Ms. Nestor just showed you, when you're standing at the foot of the bed, are you going through the hundreds of pages in that manila envelope at that time?
I was, yes.
Let's talk about the size of the bed real quick. Is it a normal, say, 6.5-foot-ish bed?
Correct. Metal bunk, yes.
So when you're at the foot of the bed and you see Sergeant Thomas in the video at the head of the bed, he's about 6 feet plus away from you, is that correct?
I would say that's accurate, yes.
Thank you.
Can I ask one follow-up?
Sure.
Did you actually see Sergeant Thomas get what is known as the walk the dog document?
I did not.
See him seize that?
I did not know.
So you don't know where that came from based on your own knowledge?
Correct, I do not know.
Was Sergeant Thomas also looking in the envelope?
I did not see him look at that envelope.
I don't have anything further.
May we release this witness?
Yes, and we would call Sergeant Thomas.
You may step down, sir.
Thank you.
I'm not sure, not the first ones, but let's see. Probably start with, probably start with 11, that's
Your
what it
Honor,
is.
while they're waiting, can you confirm that the videos was 69, 70, 74, 75, 76, and 78?
I don't know that we played. Did we play 78?
I think so, that was the last one.
That was the last one where
Sure.
Sergeant Barrett was carrying.
Okay. Sounds right. Sergeant Thomas, would you step in front of Brittany? We'll get you sworn in.
Will you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in the matter before the court to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, subject to fees and penalties of perjury? Thank you. Have a seat.
Good afternoon. Could you state your name for the record, your full name?
Jeremy Thomas,
And where is it you're employed, Sergeant Thomas?
Summit County Sheriff's Office.
And what is your position?
The administrative sergeant over the jail.
Can you lean a little bit more into the microphone?
Yeah,
Thank
I'm
you.
the administrative. Do you want me to repeat it?
No, but just going forward. Thank you.
No problem.
All right. So you were involved in a search of Ms. Richins' cell on September 13th and September 14th, 2023,
Correct.
right? What happened to initiate the first search on September 13th?
The first search that I was involved in, or the
Or were
one
you
prior?
involved in all of the searches those 2 days?
Wasn't. I was only involved in one search.
Which search were you involved in?
I believe it was the second search.
On September 13th?
Yeah.
All right. And what initiated the second search on September 13th?
Your Honor, we have a date confusion. I think Sergeant Thomas, as depicted in the video, was involved in the search on.
All right. So the 14th.
So you were only there for the search on the 14th. All right, that's fine. So the search on the 14th, what was the purpose of the search on the 14th?
There was a discussion about a role violation that Ms. Richins had engaged in over holding a letter up during a video visit. And so we were attempting to locate that letter.
Okay, so again, I don't know if we have the dates confused now. You were involved in either search on the 13th.
Negative.
Are you aware of the searches on the 13th?
Vaguely. I don't know the details of it.
All right. So is your recollection that the second search on September 13th was looking for the letter that was held up to the video?
I'm not aware.
You're not aware?
I'm aware of the I didn't see the incident, but I'm aware that she had held a paper up during a video visit.
And you're aware, or are you aware, that there was a search on the 13th to try and locate that paper?
I believe, yes.
And it wasn't located, correct?
Yes.
And just, that paper had turned out to be something that was not related to this case or even contraband, correct?
I wouldn't know.
You don't know?
I didn't see the letter. The letter was never found, so I don't know.
Okay. So the letter was not seized from the cell?
No. As far as I know, the letter that she held up was not seized.
All right. So now September 14th, the search on September 14th, that was of the entire pod, correct?
Yes. Or the one that I was involved in, yes, the whole pod was
The whole
searched.
pod. So the purpose of that search was not just to search Ms. Richins' cell?
Negative. It's to search the whole unit.
Okay. And were you looking for anything specific in that search?
The main goal was to find that letter that she held up
That had not been found the day before?
that had not
All
been
right.
found.
Okay, let's go ahead and put on State's Exhibit 72 again. Now, 11.
Alex, one moment, please. And
Now, before we get started, let me just ask you, on these videos, are you the one that collected these videos for evidence?
Yes.
And tell me how that process happens. How do you collect those videos?
You go to the camera and on the computer and then just download it onto a flash drive and then submit it into evidence.
All right. And have you had occasion to look at the videos of this particular search on September 14th before today?
I have seen it before, yes.
So you're aware that during these videos, the video freezes a number of times for lengthy periods?
Yes, it could. It's motion activated, so if it doesn't detect motion, it would probably shut off.
Okay, let's go ahead and play this. Now that's you standing outside of Ms. Richins' cell up on the far right of our screen, correct?
Yes.
With your back to the camera.
Yes, ma'am.
And what is going on in the cell at this time?
Sergeant Barrett is in the process of searching some documents at the foot of the cell of the bunk.
And those documents were located in an envelope, correct?
I have no idea. I wasn't paying attention. He would have been blocking my view of what he was actually searching.
All right.
So I'm looking at his back.
So at this time, you're not clear what he's going through, just that he's going through documents?
Correct.
Okay. Now, okay, oh, it looks like it's moving again. All right, have you up to this point been in her cell at all?
No.
All right. Let's go ahead and move to number, State's Exhibit 7413 for us. You can go ahead and hit play. Okay, so let me ask you, if this is unusual based on your experience, this is playing, but it appears that it's either frozen or you're standing very, very still.
Yeah.
Okay.
I couldn't tell you.
So my question is, though, have you seen videos typically where there is movement, but it's freezing like this?
No, it's not typical.
This is unusual. All right, I think let's watch until this unfreezes. It does unfreeze eventually, I promise. I think. There we go. So that's the first time you go into the cell.
Correct.
And are you now looking at what? Can you pause that, Alex, right there? And zoom in. You're looking at what Sergeant Barrett is looking at this point. Well, you can see what he's looking at, let me put it that way.
Yeah. I could see. I'm not paying attention to what he's doing.
All right, but you, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you. Were you finished?
Yeah.
You have an envelope in your hand right there, correct?
I have no idea. I can't tell what it is.
All right, do you recall, well, let's take another look. You still aren't sure what that is?
Mm-hmm.
Do you recall seeing the envelope in the cell that said the name of Ms. Richins' former attorney on the front of it?
No.
So you don't know what that is that you're looking at right there? It looks like an envelope, right?
I can't tell what it is. It looks like there's papers, yes, but
Okay.
I don't know if it's an envelope or not. I don't remember touching an envelope in the cell at all.
All right. So tell me what you did after this point, if you recall.
So my recollection was there on the top bunk, there was papers and books on the top. So I figured I would start searching in that area because we were looking for the document. I remember flipping through some pages on the top, and then there were some paperback books on the top bunk and the LSAT book on the top bunk. And
Stop you for 1 minute. Let me just, a couple of clarifications. So on the top bunk, there were, you said pages.
yeah, it was nothing of significance. It was like, I couldn't even tell you what they were. They were just letters, or like, it was nothing that stood out to me. So
All right. Were there a lot of pages, though, on the top bunk?
there was a few. I couldn't tell you how many, but yeah, it was scattered paper on the bunk right there.
On the bunk or the book? I'm sorry, what
On
did you
the
say?
bunk, on the metal part of the bunk. And then there were some books off to the side, and then there was the LSAT book on the top of the bunk right there also.
So the book was on top of the bunk.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go ahead then and look at some of these videos, because I want to see if you can point out to me where you might be looking at the books. So that was number, what was that, Alex, that we just played?
It's 13.
All right, I guess let's do State Exhibit 75. And again, this is another one that is frozen on and off.
Which number is it?
14. And if you can zoom in, Alex, up there. And then, is it frozen or is it stopped? All right, so we can't see what is, oh, there we go, it's moving. So at this point, you are looking at some papers, correct?
Correct.
Sorry, could you answer out loud?
Correct.
Sergeant Barrett just had an envelope. I don't know if you saw that.
I did.
So again, even though there's movement, the camera or the video is frozen at this point, correct?
Appears to be.
But we don't see you looking at any books, correct?
Not at this moment on the.
I think this unfreezes again. Oh, that was the end of it?
It's been the end of it for a minute.
All right, let's go on then to the next one.
That's why it was frozen.
Yeah, it's hard to keep track of where it starts and stops. All right, let's look at number 15, which I know a lot of this one's frozen too. But I do think it will pop on in a moment. So really what I'd like you to look at here, Sergeant Thomas, and when this unfreezes or freezes, if you can point out at any time you are looking through books up there on the top bunk. I think it's moving now, if you could. All right, now you have something in your hand. Can you zoom in on that,
I would
Alex?
say right there is where I'm in a book right there where I'm pulling,
Well,
I would think. It's hard to
it
tell.
yeah, it is. It actually looks like you're going through some papers, doesn't it?
I don't know. I was only in the cell for a couple minutes before I found the letter, so I would say it would be within the first couple minutes of being in there.
So your testimony is you found it where?
On the top bunk, right where I'm standing. That's the only place in the cell I searched.
So you only searched on the bunk, all right. And where was it on the bunk?
In the book, right where I'm standing.
But all of that none of that can be seen on the video. That's all frozen when that may have happened.
Sure, it looks like I have the letter right now, as far as I can tell.
So you have papers in your hand right now. We don't see the book, correct?
Correct.
And those papers are the pages that everyone now calls the walk the dog document.
Correct.
Those pages, when you found them, they were glued together or stuck together as if pulled out of a notebook, like when you tear a chunk out of a notebook and papers are still together on the side or on the top. Is that correct?
I don't recall. I mean, I remember flipping through them, so, but I don't remember them being secured to each other in any way.
How many pages were there when you found it?
I believe there was like eight.
There were eight.
Eight or nine total pages.
8 or 9 pages.
May have been 6. There was a letter, and then it was like a check mark or like a checklist after. So I couldn't tell you exactly how many pages there were.
All right. How many pages were turned over and are part of now what are the walk the dog pages?
All of them.
Well, now actually, and this is, I'm not entering this now, but this is the letter. It's already on the docket, but just so he can refresh.
Sure.
So if you could tell me how many pages.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6.
6. But there were 7 or 8 pages. Well, there were 8 pages, correct?
Correct.
All right. So, I think there were 9 pages. Did you take all 9 of the pages at that time?
I did.
So when you saw these pages that were in a handwriting, you read all of them, right?
I read most of the document on my way out, because once I verified that there was something in there of concern, then I was taking them out of this section to take to my supervisor.
So the very beginning of that, in front of you, the first couple of lines, and you can just read it to yourself right now,
Okay.
is about a conversation between Ms. Richins and her attorney, correct?
No. It's saying she's referring to this guy as the third person.
Right, she's talking about something that her attorney told her, correct?
Correct.
All right, so as you started to read this, you immediately saw that she was talking about something between her and her attorney, correct?
Correct.
But you continued to go on and read it?
Correct. So I scanned the document, and then fairly quick, she talks about basically what she's telling her brother to say.
Well, I understand that's what your interpretation of the document is, but let me back up a little bit. So when you come across documents that are privileged, do you typically go on and continue to read them?
They weren't marked as privileged.
When you come across documents about an individual's case that they've written,
We scan those documents, yes, to look for safety security threats.
you scan them or you read them?
Scan them. Or you read them until you determine that it's a legal document when it's a handwritten letter that's not in a legal folder or anything like that.
Now, you refer to that as a letter, but is that a letter addressed to anybody? Does it say "Dear somebody" at the top?
No, not at the top. at the back of it, it clearly is addressed to her mom.
Well, wait a minute. Let's clarify here. Addressing a letter would, there's no,
Hold on.
oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Mr. Bloodworth.
Like all the other documents in this case, it says what it says. We don't need a quiz on what it says.
Are there questions about why Sergeant Thomas did or didn't do whatever he didn't do next that you need to ask?
There is, and it's laying foundation for argument that will be made in the briefs.
If you need to ask questions about what he did or didn't do, that's fine.
Well, I think it's important to clarify, for purposes of argument and privilege, whether or not this document was obviously a letter.
Well, but you can, candidly, I don't care whether he thinks it was obviously a letter. I can address that, and I have to, under the law, make an objective determination of that. If you want to ask him why he did whatever he did or didn't do next, that's fine.
Okay. All right. Well, can I get an answer to the first question? Is there a salutation on the letter to somebody?
No,
All right. But you continued to read it
correct.
anyway. And it's not signed on the bottom by Ms. Richins. It's not Love Kouri on the bottom, correct?
I would have to,
I'll go ahead and take a
Ms.
quick
Lewis,
look.
if you just ask the next question, I'm going to move you along just a little bit here.
Was there an envelope with that to mail it?
no,
Were there any letters in her cell that were ready to be mailed out that you found that day?
I don't recall any, this is the only letter I remember. This was the only letter of significance that I felt was a violation of rules and a safety security threat.
All right, and it was attached to 3 other pages that were not, they were just notes, correct?
Yeah, it was just like a checklist of, it appeared to be a checklist. I couldn't really tell you everything that was on it, on the last 3 pages.
Okay, but not, it wasn't part, you didn't think it was part of the first 6 pages?
Yeah, I thought it was part of the actual document, yes.
All right, are you aware that the next page, page 7, was found to be privileged by the taint attorney in this case?
No,
You're not aware of that?
no.
All right, do we need to introduce her? Maybe we should just introduce this. One moment, I'm sorry, Your Honor, if you'll indulge me. So this is, where's the one where he says it's privileged? 6 pages.
We can make that.
Just want to make sure it's the right one that he says, the next page.
Yeah.
Okay, Your Honor, I just want to admit Exhibit 158 for the record. This is not a document that this witness would be familiar with, but I don't think I have any objection from.
Object.
What is it?
This is a letter from the taint stating that 7th page of this document.
Okay.
Your Honor, the other way, of course, to read that letter is that the first 6 aren't.
Why? Either way, I don't have the 7th page in front of me, do I?
No, you don't. I can get it to you and we can submit it, but it was determined to be privileged, so the government doesn't have that either.
I've not seen it.
Okay.
And the only one that,
Sure, I'm never going to rely on this, but we'll mark it, and you can
well,
make
yeah, I
whatever
just
argument.
want it for the record that
Okay.
the documents this was found with were
It's been offered.
privileged.
Okay. 158 is offered.
Okay. Now, you said you don't recall if they were glued together
I
at
do
that
not
time.
remember them being glued together, no.
All right, then if I could just also offer, I guess this would be Exhibit 159. This is just the nuance between the. Just to show you that you guys are. Sorry, Your Honor, after discussing this with Mr. Bloodworth, I'm going to move ahead. All right, so the only thing that was taken from the cell was this 8-page, 9-page document, correct?
Correct.
And what did you do with the document after you took it from the cell?
I took it into the jail commander and explained the contents of the letter to him, which then I was referred to take it to the county attorney's office to verify if it was a legal document.
I'm sorry, can you leave where I didn't hear that last part?
I took the letter out to the jail commander and discussed the contents with him, and then was referred to the county attorney to determine whether it was a legal document or not.
All right, and it was determined this is not the document that was held up to the video camera when Ms. Richins was visiting her mother that you were originally looking for, correct?
Correct.
So this is a different document that you took out of the cell.
Correct.
All right, and then the rest of her belongings were put, or I don't know if the rest of them, a number of her belongings were put in a bin, correct?
I wasn't there when that happened.
I think you were, actually. Why don't we put on video Exhibit 78 again?
Are we doing this to refresh his recollection?
Yes, but it's in evidence, I mean.
Are we going to ask him more questions about the bin, or can we move on?
I want to ask him what, yeah.
Hey, Wendy.
If you can even forward. 17.
What's that?
All right, so you are in the cell when Sergeant Barrett takes the bin down, correct?
Correct.
And Alex, if you can back up more from where he comes from. Now, he comes from behind the door, correct?
Correct.
And those belongings are things that were behind the door, it appears, correct?
Correct.
But isn't that where the LSAT book is in that bin at this point?
I wouldn't know. I was looking at the document the whole time, so I don't even recall him taking that bin out.
Do you recall coming back about an hour later to take pictures of the LSAT book?
I do.
And where was the LSAT book when you took the pictures of it?
I believe it was down in that property down there.
It was in the bin, correct?
Correct.
And did you take that book out of the cell and put it in the bin?
No, I don't know if Barrett must have grabbed it, or if he grabbed it later and put it in there, or if he grabbed it like while I was reading the letter.
Well, shouldn't that be on the video? If he put more things in the bin?
Yeah, I'd imagine.
All right. Your Honor, you'll have the videos, so he doesn't recall. I don't want to just sit here and show every video, but.
Well, to be clear, I don't know how many of these there are, but I'm not going to watch all of them unless you have determined that one of them is relevant.
All right.
You can just proffer which one you want me to watch, but
I'd like to proffer a negative. There is not a video of anything else being put in the bin after we see the bin coming
Okay.
down the stairs.
fair enough.
So, and there's only a few videos after this.
Okay.
But, so there is a video, though, of you pulling the book out of the bin, correct?
Correct.
And taking a picture of it. All right. Let me see. Your Honor, we don't have anything further. Thank you.
Mr. Bloodworth, any redirect for Sergeant?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Mr. Ramos, rather than switch computers, can I get you to bring up a video?
Yeah.
You bring up video 84?
84?
Yes, Exhibit 84. It's the second video, number 22.
Yes, the second 22.
Going down.
No, it might be the top. But let me look.
Sergeant Thomas, we'll just pick up where Miss Nestor,
Lewis. I let you get away with it once.
I apologize. Where Miss Lewis has left off. Take a look at that video. What is this depicting?
Me grabbing the book out of the bin
And why are you grabbing the book out of the bin?
so I could take a picture of where I found the letter.
And by book, you mean the LSAT book.
Yes,
And why did you want to take a picture of where you found the letter?
to book it into evidence or attach it to the report of where I found the letter
Okay.
because I stated it in my report.
Is that the LSAT book in your left hand where you found the letter?
Yeah, it looks like it.
Is this you using your cell phone to take a photograph of that?
Correct.
And is that the photograph that, if you know the number, but is it's found at 86 in the court's binder. We can show you that photograph. Do we have it real quick? Connor, can I borrow the court's binder to show? Sergeant Thomas, is the court showing you Exhibit 86?
Yes,
Is that the photograph of the LSAT book where you found the walk the dog letter?
correct.
And is that the photograph you took that was depicted in the video we just watched?
Correct.
Can you please hand that back to the court?
Ms. Nestor, Ms. Lewis, you have 86, right? Okay.
Yes, Your Honor.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
To recap, you found the walk the dog letter in the LSAT book, correct?
Correct.
And you never searched a folder, a manila folder during that entire search we've just discussed?
Not that I recall.
And you
I
never
don't
searched,
remember it at all.
and you never searched a folder with Ms. Lazzaro's name on it?
Negative.
And you conducted your search at the head of the bed?
Correct.
Head of the bed is about 6.5 feet from the foot of the bed where Sergeant Barrett was standing?
Roughly, yes.
No further questions. Thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Lewis, may we release this witness?
Yeah, we may, yes.
Okay, you can step down. Thank you. You're free to go.
Thank you, Brian.
Counsel, what's next?
Your Honor,
Here.
sorry.
It's still your floor.
We would just want to admit into evidence, which is State's Exhibit 107 and 108.
They've been offered.
It's
You'll have an
already been
opportunity
offered.
to
We could
tell me why they're
stipulate to those, yes.
important.
Those are a recording and a transcript of said recording of a phone call between Ms. Richins and her mother, where she talks about that these 6 pages, the walk the dog document, were located in the envelope with the privileged papers. There's other parts of the conversation, but that's what we would be offering.
Proffer the date for me.
September 17th, I believe, 2023.
It's the 16th.
16th? Okay.
I think it's the 17th, but
I could be
either
wrong.
the 16th or the 17th, it should be on the transcript.
One moment. Okay.
And then we have nothing further.
Okay.
Your Honor, the state, as to the same walk the dog letter motion to suppress, wants to call Detective Jeff O'Driscoll.
May I ask a more practical question for just a moment? I can stay a little bit late, but I'm not sure if a little bit gets us to the end. And I don't want to stay a little bit late if we're still coming back on another day. I need to be careful about using that resource. So if we need more time, we need more time. That's fine. But should the next discussion we have be about blocking some more time for these issues? I know, but I got to be fair to Brittany and whatnot. Thank you. I don't think an hour's going to get us there.
Your Honor, I think we can get through this. How late are you able to stay?
I can stay till 6, but let's be practical here. Can we really get through everything else that we need to get in between now and 6 p.m.? Mr. Ramos is saying no. I hate doing these things under time pressure.
Well, Your Honor, I think some of that may depend on emotions regarding the data that Mr. Ramos has filed. The state intends to call Mr. Kochodimos testify to the effect of, based on tons of training knowledge and experience with these types of warrants. This warrant is very typical of phone extraction warrants. In fact, it's more narrow than many phone extraction warrants that contain language simply like dump the phone as long as it has to do with the crime. And he can explain why warrants require that breadth. Now, I can see where that information would be unnecessary given the fact that this court has approved so many similar warrants and just probably knows that.
Well, the other issue that I think there's a scope of the inquiry issue that I have here is that the warrant was issued. It says what it says. Is there a legal route for collateral attack on its scope at this point?
So,
I mean, once it's issued, isn't the only routes of attack either that it was secured through fraud, that's a Frank's hearing, or that its execution was unreasonable? But as long as the information seized or secured is within the scope described by the warrant, is there a legal basis for the warrant was overbroad when issued kind of attack?
Your Honor, the state doesn't believe so. And to be clear, that the defense in their motion has not challenged the veracity of the probable cause under Frank's.
Understood.
The defense has not challenged the execution of the warrant. They are indeed challenging the four corners of the warrant as issued.
Help me understand, Mr. Ramos, what's your hook?
It's a lack of particularity described in what to search for within it.
And let's assume you're absolutely right about that, and that the judge that issued it missed it, wasn't sufficiently attentive. At this point, though, where we have, I believe, good faith reliance on an overbroad warrant, isn't it black letter law that that's not a violation of the Fourth Amendment?
Well, no, I don't believe so. If it was issued and it lacked particularity, Your Honor has the discretion to go back and either suppress it entirely.
Do
or,
I have that authority?
Well, if you do, Judge, based on case law.
Okay. And you'll be able to cite me to that?
The way I've read it, yes, Judge.
Okay.
Now,
All right.
that's assuming Your Honor believes it does in fact lack particularity.
Okay.
If it doesn't,
Well, I need to give you a fair opportunity to lay that foundation, though, and make your arguments.
now to be fair, coming into this motion or to this hearing, we were going to just submit on the four corners and just brief it. So I had no plans on calling anybody. However, I understand the state's position of wanting to call Mr. Kotridemus.
Candidly, I really don't care what Mr. Kostridemus thinks is typical. I mean, I'll wager with him about how many of these I've seen versus how many he's seen, and so I think I can make that call.
And the state's comfortable with that, Your Honor, because candidly, the court has signed warrants with identical language.
Yeah, probably so.
It is our stock language that we use in every phone dump warrant.
Right. But I need to give Mr. Ramos an opportunity to make his arguments, and so,
If,
yeah.
well, that, Your Honor, I believe that opportunity will come in paper.
Yeah.
I'm happy to limit this based on the court's experience with such warrants to the four corners, not call Mr. Kotridemus and move on.
Is there any evidence you feel like the defense needs to put on to provide the record from which you can make your arguments regarding this warrant is infirm because of a lack of particularity?
Judge, I believe that I'm limited to the four corners.
Okay,
I don't believe I can present any evidence, even if I wanted to.
understood.
Should he want to do it, and I'd certainly love a chance to cross-examine
No, I don't.
somebody.
Candidly, I don't think Mr. Kostridemus's testimony on that issue is going to be particularly persuasive.
We would agree, Judge, and one thing we did discuss, which we would just, it's already been offered. I've discussed this with Mr. Bloodworth. In the initial motion that I filed, I identified some warrants. Come to find out later, there was another one that it just wasn't identified as through the IMEI number.
Okay.
So we've gone back and forth. All of the warrants have been offered. We're stipulating to them, and I'll cite them in the brief, but
Understood.
just wanted to let Your Honor know.
Okay. All right. Mr. Ramos, anything else we need to discuss today regarding the motion to suppress electronic data?
No.
Okay. Mr. Bloodworth?
Nothing further on that motion, Your Honor. I think we can call Detective O'Driscoll in relation to the walk the dog motion. I think we can complete that before 6 o'clock.
All right. Ms. Lewis, do you want to give that a try?
Yeah, I think we can get this done.
All right. Let's give it a try.
Your Honor, the state recalls Detective O'Driscoll.
Okay. Detective, we released you, so I got to swear you in again.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in the matter before the court to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, subject to the pains and penalties of perjury? Yes, I do. Thank you. Have a seat.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Please.
Handing Detective O'Driscoll a copy of 6-page walk the dog letter that is in the court's docket at 214. Detective O'Driscoll, I'm going to ask you some questions to ideally provide the court with some clarity regarding some of the discussion inside the walk the dog letter, okay?
Okay.
Your Honor, I'm going to object at this point. I don't see how going through this is going to be helpful to the court, like Mr. Bloodworth's been telling us all day. What's in the letter, what's in the letter, the court can read it. The question here is whether...
Pause one moment. Help me out, Mr. Bloodworth. Where are we headed?
Sir, it's interpretation more than reading.
Why can't I interpret it, though, as well as this gentleman?
Your Honor, because some of the interpretation requires information that the court doesn't possess that Detective O'Driscoll has developed through investigation. Can I give you an example?
Let me ask you another circumstance question. Is it information that Sergeant Thomas had when he handed it over to the Summit County Attorney's Office?
No, Your Honor. It is information to decode, if you will, some of the coded pieces of the letter and to explain why to explain the meaning of the letter. And let me proffer why that's necessary, right? The defense in their moving papers have essentially argued that among an attorney-client, the letter is a attorney-client communication. They've also, I guess, alternatively argued it is attorney work product protected.
Right.
It can't be both. It can be one or the other. They've
Sure.
argued in the alternative. And their work product protection argument is essentially that this walk the dog letter, the defendant prepared it in anticipation of litigation or trial.
Or that it reflects a conversation she had with her attorney about those preparations? That the substance is attorney work product, yeah.
Correct. All grounding in, we're doing this because of litigation and
Right.
trial. The state will make an argument in the future when we prepare our opposition papers that, no, the walk the dog letter was not prepared by the defendant in anticipation of litigation or trial. Rather, it was prepared by the defendant in anticipation of witness tampering and publicity. To make that argument, the court needs a deeper understanding of the walk the dog letter, who the various references are in the walk the dog letter, so that the state can make that argument.
And when you say references, are you referring to names, places?
Yes, names, places, so,
Why don't we just ask those questions, Ms. Lewis? That's fine.
That's all the questions. Your Honor, I'm going to hold up so the court can see it. It's the highlighted pieces of the walk the dog letter that Ms. Lewis has.
The way to do this, to obviate the objection, is to the extent this letter says something to the effect of names a person named John Doe, just ask this witness, do you recognize that name? Does that person have any significance to this case?
Yes, Your Honor, that's the plan.
Okay. Ms. Lewis?
For the record,
Yeah.
just renew the objection that the letter can be read on its face for purposes of a motion to suppress.
Fair enough. Can you speak specifically, though, that there may be names or other references in there that you all recognize that I don't recognize or wouldn't when performing an objective review of the letter, because I don't have the same level of information that you all have?
I think that who these may refer to, I don't know what he's going to say, but may not be what we believe. What he believes may be something different. But now we're back to infecting the jury pool again. They're going to argue that these are coded words. Where he gets his information is certainly not from Ms. Richins, who wrote the letter. So we're going to put a whole bunch more stuff out there that Mr. Bloodworth was very concerned about.
With respect, it's already out there. This was all on the record. Gosh, we had a hearing about this. Ms. Lazaro was standing there saying the same thing, and I said something to the effect of if they thought they had probable cause to charge her with witness tampering, they would have charged her with it, but we are where we are. Everybody has their arguments. This has been out for a year and a half. Can we just get the factual information out, and then you'll all be able to make your arguments? But that concern was vetted a year and a half ago.
All right, I understand. I just have an ongoing objection to this.
I understand. Just ask factual questions.
Yes, Your Honor, and can we agree that the state has discretion in whether or not to charge
Sure.
if there's probable cause?
We'll see. Okay, let's keep moving.
Detective O'Driscoll, can you please turn to page 3 of the letter?
Yes.
In the middle paragraph, that reads, also please text Lotto or call, tell him, do not text me.
Yes.
Do you know who Lotto is?
It's Mike Kelly.
And who, at the time of the walk the dog letter, was Mike Kelly in relation to the defendant?
Close friend or intimate interest.
The letter then says, tell him not to text me. What do you understand that reference to text me to mean?
text messages sent over the HomeWave system from the jail.
And did they have a history of texting over the HomeWave system from the jail?
Yes.
Can you please turn to page 4? Do you see right at the top a reference to potentially working out mortgages for houses identified as hers, yours, and Chelsea's?
Yes.
The hers, you can tell from the letter, relates to Marissa's. Who is the yours in that sentence?
Lisa Darden's.
And how is it you know that?
Because at the time, Lisa's house, just like Chelsea's and Marissa's or those properties, was facing foreclosure.
And who was responsible for the mortgages on those 3 homes that were facing foreclosure?
Kay Richins Realty, or Miss Richins.
You see about 2 sentences down, there's a reference to Lotto and his house in Hideout.
Yes.
Did Michael Kelly at that time own a home in Hideout?
Yes.
At the end of that paragraph, you see a reference to the Yotels.
Yes.
Do you understand that reference?
Yes.
What is it?
2 properties at the Canyons Resort that were short-term rentals owned by Kay Richins Realty.
And like the other 3 properties, were those 2 Yotel properties in foreclosure at that time?
Yes.
The next paragraph asks, one way to get at Katie is going through my phone and finding pictures of her girl.
Yes.
Based on your investigation, did the defendant's mother, Lisa Darden, at that time have access to either a copy of the defendant's phone or a new phone that contained the defendant information from the defendant's phone?
It appears so, yes.
I object. He doesn't have any direct knowledge of that. Speculation.
Yeah, we lay a little foundation. I'm not sure what he means by it appears so.
Sure. How do you know that the defendant's mother, Lisa Darden, at that time had access to information from the defendant's phone?
During several other instances of calls or text messages between Miss Richins and her mother, she frequently asked her mother to retrieve data or information from, quote, her phone.
And based on that, and based on that request, and jail calls, did Lisa Darden appear to retrieve information from the defendant's phone?
In reply, yes.
On page 5, the letter references my girls and then Chelsea, Kelsey, and Selma. Based on your investigation, who are Chelsea, Kelsey, and Selma in relation to the defendant?
3 of her closest friends.
Finally, turn to page 6, please. In the middle, it reads, lastly, don't forget to work on the gun receipts. We want to file charges and let the prosecutor not do anything about it.
Yes.
Based on your investigation, what is this business about gun receipts?
Miss Richins,
I'm going to object. I think he's identified the names of the people. I think now Your Honor can read the rest of this letter. There's nobody else to identify in here.
I think I can draw an inference on that one, Mr. Bloodworth. We can move on.
I suspect the court can draw an inference on crest white strips as well, so I will stop there.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Ms. Lewis, any follow-up for Detective O'Driscoll?
So, one moment.
Of course.
Your Honor, we don't have anything further.
All right. Detective, you can step down. Thank you.
Do you need this copy?
What is it?
The letter.
No, I have it, sir. Thank you. You can leave it there. All right. Mr. Bloodworth, anything further from the state today?
Your Honor, can I briefly recall the Detective O'Driscoll?
Sure. We need to be iterating towards an end here. Okay. No, he's still, I didn't release, he's still under oath. You understand that you're under oath, correct, Detective?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Detective O'Driscoll, you've testified to this before. As a part of your investigation, did you contact representatives of the hunting camp in Mexico where Eric Richins hunted?
Other investigators on the case did, yes.
I object. I don't know where this is going. It doesn't seem to have anything to do with what's in front of the court right now.
I have similar questions. Tell me where we're going.
Your Honor, the court has heard this testimony, and that
True.
The testimony.
Stop there, though. Why do we need to get into this today?
Your Honor, because the defense has argued, not only in its moving papers, but in some of its questioning today, that this business about the hunting camp was a discussion between Ms. Lazaro and the defendant.
How would this gentleman know whether that is the case or not?
He would know that that discussion is inconsistent, the purported discussion between Ms. Lazaro and the defendant is inconsistent with the facts of the case that Ms. Lazaro had at the time. I'm also mindful of burdens here, Your Honor. The defense, of course, has the burden, right, to...
Showing that this is either privileged or protected from disclosure as work product.
Correct, and they have presented no testimony on that issue. Nevertheless, the state could present testimony right now regarding the investigation into the hunting camp.
Yeah, let's stop there, though. The hunting camp issue potentially opens several different cans of worms. I'm going to limit you on this topic today. We'll see if we ever need to get into this prior to trial.
Yes, Your Honor, understood. Can I propose this? To the extent the state, because we haven't seen substantive papers from the defense, right? To the defense opens this can of worms.
Understood.
Can the state rely on Detective O'Driscoll's previous testimony on the issue in its responsive papers?
Sitting here today, I can't remember if these lawyers were present when he testified to that.
It was the previous set of lawyers.
Okay, I'll consider that.
Okay.
Still not sure this is ever going to come up on this motion, but we'll see.
So I appreciate that. I'm not sure either.
So that's even more reason to move on.
Fair.
Okay, anything else for this witness?
No, sir, thank you.
Ms. Lewis, may we let this gentleman step down?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Bloodworth, anything else from the state today?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Nestor?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Lewis?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Ramos?
No, Judge, thank you.
We need to talk about deadlines. I am happy to let all of you talk amongst yourselves, agree to some briefing deadlines, and tell me what they are when we convene on February 3. Is that agreeable?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Bloodworth?
That's agreeable, Your Honor. I would just ask, because I've seen the court do it both ways, is the court's general preference for kind of a more substantive briefing from the defense, followed by opposition by the state and reply?
I mean, you all can stipulate around whatever you want to do. To the extent people want to have the last word on the issues for which they have the burden, I don't know that I'm going to say no to that. That can create some lengthy back and forth. So just talk to each other, see if you can agree to what's going to happen here. I would prefer to receive all the briefing, be able to read all the briefing, and then have a hearing where I can ask you questions about it and have you make your arguments after I've seen it. That works best for me.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Talk to each other, though, about the timeline for that, and let me know what you decide on February 3. We are reconvening on February 3 by WebEx, I believe, at 9:30 a.m. to discuss juror questionnaire related topics. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Ms. Lewis, is that your understanding?
It is my understanding, Ms. Olson and I were just discussing, given the information we got today about the February 11th date, it might make sense to move the February 3rd date until after February 11th.
Folks, whether you pull jurors from this county, an adjacent county, a county in the southern end of the state, isn't your jury questionnaire going to look exactly the same?
Yeah, he's the only one to talk about the questionnaire.
You're probably,
And whether it's in person or by virtual means, isn't your jury questionnaire going to look exactly the same?
I would agree with that.
Okay. February 3, 9:30 a.m. by WebEx. All right. Anything else today, Mr. Ledworth?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Nestor, Ms. Lewis, Mr. Ramos?
Nothing from
All
us.
right. Ms. Richins, I'll see you on February 3. I wish you the best of luck. Court's in recess. Everyone, please travel safe. Thank you. Okay. May I keep this binder in my office? Do you trust me to do that?